And welcome to Hills Bank and Trust. I'm glad you can join me today in learning about the oldest established business in Lisbon. The bank dates back to 1874 when the First National Bank of Lisbon was formed with $50,000 in capital from local investors. This would be equivalent to $1.2 million in today's currency. The first officers were President Harrison Stutzlager and cashier Gottlieb Aracher. This would begin a long association of these families with the bank in Lisbon. Lisbon was incorporated as a town in 1875, and in that same year, as one of the first official acts of the newly formed town council, Harrison Stutzlager purchased nearly this entire block for $100. Stutzlager was the only person to bid on the property, and the sale caused quite a bit of tension and suspicion between residents and the newly formed town council, which blew over in due time. Stutzlager built 4 two-story fireproof brick buildings on the property, and the bank was located in this building. The bank consisted of 2 levels along with the basement. The first floor of the bank still retains its basic features: teller counter, office space, vault, and safety deposit box room. We're going to give you a rare glimpse of the upstairs of the bank. Please keep in mind that this space has not been open to the public and has only been used for storage for many years.
The upper level of the bank was used for a variety of purposes in the early years. At one point, the town council held meetings in this space. A secret society called the Knights of Pythias used the upper level of the bank for meetings as well. A wallpaper with the group's insignia still remains on the walls, along with a cloakroom and hidden people.
Let me share some of the history of this building. In 1881, the bank's director voted to surrender their federal charter, and the bank became a private bank operating under the name of Stutzlager and Aracher, with a net worth of $200,000, or $4.8 million in today's currency. A fire destroyed most of this block in May of 1894. The entire block was rebuilt the following year by a group of unemployed workers who called themselves Coxey's Army. An interesting note: when the block was rebuilt, it included only the main bank building and one other very large building that ran from the bank down to Gwen's restaurant. All of the buildings on this block, called Union Block, had elevated basements for easy access. When Harrison Stutzlager and Gottlieb Aracher passed away, their sons Willard Stutzlager and John Aracher began their careers with the bank. At the time of Willard Stutzlager's death in 1931, most of the stock in the bank was still owned by the Stutzlager family. At that time, Iowa law required that banks be incorporated, so Lisbon Bank and Trust Company was formed, with John Aracher serving as president. The Lisbon Bank remained open during the Depression, except for the few days when President Franklin Roosevelt closed every bank in the nation. After nearly 80 years in the banking business, the Stutzlagers sold the bank to a group of local investors in 1950. Dr. John Gardner, who practiced medicine on the second floor of the building adjacent to the original bank building, was named president. Following his death in 1965, his son-in-law, Harry Sizer, became president and continued the family's association with the bank until his death. In the following years, the bank underwent several extensive remodels, one in the late 1960s to make it look more modern, and another in the 1990s to make the bank look much like it did when first built. The last remodel was done primarily by local craftsmen and artisans. During the course of the last remodel, removal of a false ceiling revealed a safe that contained very important documents. Following the death of Harry Sizer in 1979, ownership of the bank changed several times, marking the first time in history of the bank that the line of local control had been broken. However, in 1989, a group of local investors led by Terry Trimpe purchased the bank, and the bank was back in control of local residents. The bank purchased the adjacent building in the early 1990s for space for an ATM machine, a conference room, and additional office space. The building once housed Kramer's, a retail store which was destroyed by fire in the early 1960s, and later housed Lindsay Plumbing. The manual elevator and original Kramer's store sign can still be found on the upper level of the building. Hills Bank purchased the bank from Trimpe's group in 1996. Hills Bank and Trust Company is one of Iowa's largest independent banks with offices in many eastern Iowa towns. The Lisbon branch is one of the oldest continuously operated banks in the state of Iowa. I hope you enjoyed the walk through the rich history of Lisbon's first bank. Like many commercial buildings in our downtown area, this place matters.